Let us open up our meeting with prayer. And we pray. Surely I am being turned to thee, O Allah, being upright to he who originated the heavens and the earth, and I'm not of the polytheists. Surely my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds, no associate as he. This is my command, that I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou art the King, and there is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, I am thy servant. I've been greatly unjust to myself, and I confess my faults. So grant me protection against my faults, Allah, for none grants protection against faults except thee. And turn away from me the evil and indecent morals, for none can turn from me the evil and indecent morals but thee. But guide me, Allah, to the best of morals, for none guides to the best of morals but thee. O Allah, bless Muhammad and the followers of Muhammad as thou didst bless Abraham and the followers of Abraham. And make Muhammad and the followers of Muhammad successful as thou didst make Abraham and the followers of Abraham successful, for surely thou art praised and magnified in thy midst. And O Allah, we beseech your aid, guidance, and protection, your mercy and your forgiveness. We seek refuge in thee from the accursed Satan. We invoke your spirit on this meeting this morning. Bless the participants and bless everyone that we contact with your spirit. Give us a double portion of our spirit. Help us to multiply and amplify our Islam through the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, aided by the teachings of Mr. L. Ron Hubbard. And these things we ask of you, Allah. We ask in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Ameen. Yes, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Day 18 of Ramadan. And do you know where your children are? Anyway, here we are again. Praise be to Allah. And happy to be here. Happy to be alive, seeing another day that Allah has brought us. And we thank Allah for this day. We thank Allah for the opportunity to gather together in his name to acknowledge and to celebrate his Ramadan. This is Allah's Ramadan. Matter of fact, all that is in the heavens and the earth is Allah's. So we welcome you this morning to our call and hope that your fast is going well. And mine is going good, man. It's going too good. I think I went to sleep. I was sleeping so good, I ain't want to wake up. At least not so soon. I ain't gonna say I didn't want to wake up. So anyway, I guess we'll go ahead on and get right on into it. All right, we're on part 18. And I'm assuming that this is Surah 23, the believers. So if Sister Haviva is ready, I would like for her to read all the way from 1 to 11.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, my dear family.
Wa alaikum salam, dear sister.
Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Quranic.
In the most holy name of Allah, the Beneficent, the most merciful. Surah 23, Al-Mu'min, the believers, section 1. Success of the faithful. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. Ayat 1. Successful indeed are the believers who are humble in their prayers and who shun what is vain and who act for the sake of purity and who restrains their sexual passions except in the presence of their mates or those whom their right hand possess. For such surely are not blamable. But whoever seeks to go beyond that, such are the transgressors. And those who are keepers of their trust and their covenant, and those who keep a guard on their prayers, these are the heirs who inherit paradise. Therein they will abide. Allahu Akbar.
All right.
Allah speaks the truth. Allahu Akbar.
All right. Okay. So successful are indeed are the believers. Successful. Somebody used to say success. How do you measure success? And they said success is where you are in comparison to where you could be. So the closer you are to where you could be, the closer to you are to your potential, the closer you are to your maximum capability, it is an indicator of how successful you are. And so we were, right before we got into Dianetics, we were talking about, Belinda and I used to talk about this idea. You know, you look in the mirror and look at yourself and you say, how close am I to my maximum? And then just the confronting of how close are you to your maximum, it would stimulate certain thoughts. And when you make this calculation of whatever the gap is between what you perceive your maximum capability to be to where you actually are in reality, or where you perceive that you actually are in reality, that would be an indicator of your success. And sometimes we may be further along, however, than we perceive. And I have found that, you know, in dealing with people, and sometimes myself, you know, sometimes you can underestimate yourself. And then sometimes, unfortunately, you can overestimate yourself as well. So successful are the believers. In other words, when we believe, we are able to fulfill more of our potential, you see. And so it says successful. So you get that success by being humble in your prayers, you know. And see, the humility is what allows you to as is a particular situation. It allows you to see yourself as you are, which goes back to the basic definition of humility, of being humble. You know, humble is basically when one is humble, he is aware of his shortcomings. He's aware, and so you're not so quick to judge, because you start thinking about yourself, and like the mechanism, the unseen mechanism of Allah is that is spelled out in the verse. It said, judge not lest ye be judged, because as soon as you start judging somebody, then they're going to say, well, what about you? Then you got some kind of nerve reminding me of my dirt, and you walking around with dirty shoes on, you see. And this is part of what the minister was saying when he took the titles away. He said, you got people throwing people out of the mosque and all this kind of stuff like that. And they just as guilty, and sometimes even more guilty than the people that they throwing out, you see. And this is what I see even in our culture now, the culture of the nation. I just see a lot of judgment, and especially, people. wanting to come down on the so-called Uncle Toms and all this stuff. And then, of course, I can understand the thing about the Uncle Toms. I mean, I don't like Uncle Toms either. I don't like to see our people support the minister and then don't support the minister. But the Quran is teaching us, he's trying to make us more civilized and trying to upgrade our judgment, upgrade our perception of people by pointing out, what Allah feels about it. Allah said, everybody, we hate a coward. We hate the cowardice in ourselves. We hate to see somebody run from something. Allah don't like to see nobody run from a fight. But he said that if you're running is just a maneuver, then it is permitted. And then the other verse we talked about the other day about if you are compelled to deny or to disbelieve, or if you're compelled, if the thing didn't, if you're not the cause of it, in other words, if someone just put pressure on you and compel you to disbelieve, that's not the same as somebody who just heaps disbelief into their breast, heap disbelief into their mind and into their thinking. It's not the same. Yet, when the brother that was on Shark Tank, when he said something positive about the minister, and he said something positive about the minister, and then he was made to recant it. And then so he said, "Oh, these just old weak, no good Negroes," and so on and so on. And that might be true to a certain degree, but this is why the minister sent us. I was one reason why the minister sent us into this technology is because see what you see is a man cowering. What you see is a man that's backing down, a man that's recanting. But what you don't see is the mechanism, the affinity, reality, in communication. See, if you don't see what this man's reality is, it's reality. Perception is reality. So they threaten this man. He feel like he gonna lose his big house on the hill, his Bentley, his yacht, or his airplane, or something like that. Then that is a compelling factor, one that you can't see. The only thing you can see is that he's going against the truth that our ministers. That's all we can see. So now we just like the people that when Jesus came back into, I think, Jerusalem, and they said, crucify him, and so we just absolutely have to rise above that type of thinking, brothers and sisters, because it's just better for us. Because what we're saying, these Qurans bless us with a higher gradient of thinking. It's a higher gradient of thinking when you can think through this thing. Here's a man, yeah, he did something wrong, but then now you're peeling back another layer. You're understanding why he did that. He did not really do that of his own accord. His enemy and your enemy made him do it. So now, in effect, you and we have let the enemy turn us away from our own people who we are sent to save. We're sent to save this man, not to condemn him. And yet we see our people, I see people on social media, they just gloating, man. Humble in their prayers, and who shun what is vain. And so the vain, shun what is vain, and that's kind of like when you start adding to your goodness. You know what I mean? That's when you start giving yourself a little bit more credit than you possibly are due. And that goes back, the scripture there it says that man does not think more of himself than he ought to. And see, whenever you begin to add And I think it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, if you add something to something, you're really taken away from it. Because what it is, you're taken away from the reality of it. If you add something that ain't there, if Jesus said that can a man add a cubit to his height? So when we begin to add things and to try to embellish things, we are creating a false reality, which ultimately we're creating confusion. And in creating confusion, you're creating at the same time stupidity. You're creating a stupor, where you lose your orientation. See, when you lose your orientation toward that which is real, then you go into a state where you have become deceived. See? And that's not good. Shun what is vain, shun, and what is the unseen aspect of vanity. It is what we call the service facsimile. In Dianetics, it's called justified thought. In the Nation of Islam, the ministers, we would call it the minister's vernacular. He calls it deceptive intelligence. And Mr. Hubbard breaks that thing down. He says that a service facsimile is a mental picture that is created to help the person regain ARC with himself. And usually we get service facsimiles in the form of excuses. When people give you an excuse for something, that is really a service facsimile. See? So we shun the service facsimile, because the service facsimile is entering something, admitting something into your mental picture that is not true. So you begin to feed on untruth. And this throws off your calibration of reality, because your mind, especially your subconscious mind, it don't know the difference. So when you talking, when you saying it, when you telling this lie to yourself, where you say, well, I know this ain't this, and you don't know that. But see, when it gets recorded in your mind, you lose the access to correcting it in real time. It gets stored in your mind erroneously. Well, not erroneously, but inaccurately. Is that making sense? Praise be to Allah. So we need to shun what is vain, because we don't want, we don't want to dump trash in our clean room. We got a bathroom, you don't want to spit on the floor. It's just like spitting on the floor, and so we humble in our prayers, we shun what is vain, and we act for the sake of purity, which is actually, it is related to the last ayat, shunning what is vain. You act for the sake of purity, and not purity, not vain purity. Because you have some people who who work hard at trying to uphold the law, and they'll tell you in a minute, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't fornicate, I don't commit adultery, and I don't this and I don't that, and all that kind of stuff. But when they say that, they do that for the sake of vanity and not for the sake of purity. See, because they may start out doing it for the sake of purity, but then they start feeling themselves, and then all of a sudden, then it becomes vain. So we have to shame what is vain and do what we do out of the sake of purity, that we don't want to contaminate ourselves with that which is not true, that we don't want to contaminate ourselves with sin. We don't want to contaminate ourselves with lies, because we know anything that is transgressive, uh, it it makes us impure. It affects negatively the connections that you and I may have with Almighty God, Allah. Okay, and who five and who restrain their sexual passions except in the presence of their mates or those whom their right hands possess, for surely are not blamable. So that's what it is. Sexual passion is part of our nature, and it's part of what motivates us to keep the earth populated. However, we have to manage these urges. We have to manage this nature. And as we talked about the concentric circles, they all represent part of our nature, that we have that we have urges to fulfill, urges to satisfy self, urge to satisfy family and sex, and urge to be a part of a group and part of humanity, so forth and so on. So when we are able to restrain our passions, and this is part of what Ramadan is about, it is actually to give us some uh, degree of discipline over these natural urges, because they are natural urges. They're natural urges, just like the urge to eat is natural. And just like the urge for me to want to drink a glass of water right now because my mouth is dry. That's the urge. And uh, so these are the things that we're dealing with here. So number 7, it says, but whoever seeks to go beyond that, such are transgressors. So he's with this theme of purity, this thing of keeping it real, this thing of maximizing ourselves, maximizing our presence, maximizing our uh, perception and ability to perceive things. Is worked on this month. Okay, and then number 8, and those who are keepers of their trusts and their covenant. Well, trust. When you trust, that means that if I can trust you, then that means that you have integrity. If you tell me you're gonna do something, I can trust that you're gonna do it, and that the only, if you tell me, that is enough. Just as we were talking about uh, the reoccurring themes where Allah is asking the believers to trust me, man, trust me. But He wants you to keep your trust too. It ain't just supposed to be a one-way street where, Allah keeps His trust to us and then we don't keep our trust to Him. We have to do it, and then and if we don't keep these trusts, these things really affect us, whether we realize it or not. And see, there may be, and that's the funny thing about the universe, as we were talking about. See, when you come from the tone 40, which is the total serenity, and then you come down to tone 20, which is work and action, then uh, you come halfway down the tone scale, then at that point, then that's when you start feeling the physical universe. That's when you start feeling the counter actions and the counter motions and so forth and so on. And uh, uh, so when we keep our trust, with Allah, when we keep our trust, then it makes for uh, the creation and the maintenance of a strong bond with whoever or whomever we have, entrusted, who entrusts us. And the covenant is the agreement, the covenant is the parameters of activities that you have agreed to engage in, that you have agreed to follow and submit yourself to. And so the believers are those who keep their trust. If I trust you, then you are trustworthy. And if I make a covenant with you, I can count on you. And that's what Allah is doing. He counts on us. And obviously, well, I'm not going to say obviously, because I guess that's my whole point, is that it's not obvious. A lot of times you can say, you, you can present yourself as a trustworthy person or as a person that keeps a covenant, but uh, but sometimes we break the covenant, sometimes we break the trust, and we are deceived because of the calm lag of the universe. The calm lag just goes, in other words, once you do it, it's not, once you break the trust, generally it's not going to manifest itself in your life right then. There is a calm lag. And so the fact that it does not manifest itself immediately sometimes deceives people into thinking that they they done got away with it. And this is something that the minister have warned us about over and over the years, is that, you just, there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that you do that you don't have to account for. And that's what the God is telling us in the Quran this month, is that whatever you do, he say, man, if it's the weight of an atom, I know about it. You know, and that, and he letting you know, look, I am meticulous. If I can pay attention to a leaf falling off of a tree and how many hairs you got on your head, I can show enough be cognizant and observant and even vigilant on the covenants and the covenants that we have and the trust that we have. And the covenant with God is the highest covenant, because these are the covenants that that produce the right relationship with God, that give us ARC with God. See, the covenant might be something that you can write down and you can see, but the unseen part of it is that it is bonding you. The unseen part of it is that you are falling in love with that which you willingly accept a covenant with. The unseen aspect of it is that you're gaining more understanding of these things. And as you gain more understanding, as Mr. Hubbard says, when you understand a thing, then you are gaining life. See, life. Life is understanding. Life is oneness with the creation, with the reality of Allah. Since Allah is the only reality, whatever can be agreed upon, when we agree upon it and we achieve ARC with it, it only adds to our light, to our life. So those who are keepers of the trust in their covenant. And then number 9, and those who keep a guard on their prayers, guard your prayers. I know sometimes I don't feel like, sometimes I just don't feel like praying. Sometimes I just don't feel like it, sometimes my wife and I we'll look at something on TV and then be about time to go to bed, and then so I have to remind myself, man, you got to pray before you go to bed, because you don't really have to remind yourself, but sometimes you just have to make yourself do it. And that's part of guarding your prayers and keeping your covenant with Allah. We said, well, I'm gonna pray to you. That's part of Islam. That's part of my covenant that I pray to you, Allah. It's part of my covenant that I fast for you, Allah. Part of my covenant that I give zakat, charity, Allah. Part of my covenant that I engage in jihad, which means I fight these demons that are within myself, and have pilgrimage, which means not just going to Mecca, but actually going back to yourself, to finding the epicenter of you, finding and understanding your person. Allah appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. And then so what is your person? Understand more about yourself. And you do this in the same manner of which we talked about earlier. When you do it, you have success with these things if you are humble, and if you shun which is vain, and if you do what you do for the sake of purity, because that's going to give you the most effective and efficient pathway to the Lord of the worlds. You see, keep guard over your prayers. He said, these are the heirs who will inherit paradise. See, because the higher up, closer to God you go, the less tolerant he is of your and my BS. And that's what I was telling a brother. One brother that, he comes on every once in a while. But I was just telling this brother, I said, man, see, one thing about it now, once you peep under the hood, once you start looking at the unseen, and even before, but especially once you start looking at this thing on the level that we looking at it with STW, when you're looking at it through the microscope and the telescope, the macroism and the microcosm, the closer you get to Allah, the less he gonna tolerate your BS. So you can't play with this. And this is what my mentor told me. Allah be pleased with him. I thank Allah for him. He used to tell me, he said, man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he said, you will not be able to play with this, meaning Islam. And then another thing he said that have stuck with me over the years is that he said, cowards cannot follow me. See? So if we do these things, if we act, if we are humble in our prayers, shun which is vain, act out of the sake of purity. So when you start talking about out of the sake of purity, see, this is part of what STW is to help you and I to define what is pure, what is purity. To get the mental picture, see, since we understand now what the importance of these mental pictures, if we can get a pure picture in our mind, if we can get that the maximum the picture of the maximum of how far we can go, if we can get the ultimate picture in our mind, then we have what they call what we call an anchor point, where you can when you view the point, the viewpoint is from where you are viewing from, and then the anchor point is the destination. And so when we are able to establish the anchor point of righteousness, an anchor point of piety, and even an anchor point of vanity. So when you see that in your measurement, then you can shun that and master the physical manifestation of Master Farad Muhammad can be viewed like an anchor point. He's the, he is the point that we are focusing our view. You viewpoint the view, you have the viewpoint. He is the anchor point. He is where the God manifests. He is where Allah manifests himself. He is the portal of the reality of God. He is the anchor point to the epicenter of God, the actual location, so where you can locate God. See, that's why you need an anchor point. That's why the whole thing of Master Farad Muhammad being a man and being God is so important. Because now you have, before when you say God, there's nothing for you to anchor yourself on. So therefore you are confused. You really ultimately are confused as hell, and the world has manifested that confusion. And that goes back to the example that we gave when you cut up a piece of paper into 1,000 different pieces and you throw it up in the air and everything comes down like confetti, then it's hard to make sense out of it. But if you color one piece of the paper, now you have an anchor point. Now you have the basis by which you can understand and you can begin to build a body of knowledge. So you look at that one piece and you say, okay, oh yeah, I see that. Well, I believe this is so and so and so. So you believe, and then you have faith, and then you test it this way, test it that way. And then if it comes out the way that you thought it was, now I understand what's going on. And then so you take that understanding and then you build another belief based on that. And then you have what Mr. Hubbard calls the theta mess theory. So these are the things that we need to really understand. These are the things that really have given the Nation of Islam power. We're talking about the unseen now. You do believe in the unseen, right? We all do. We just ain't seen it. Allah is making some of the unseen seen now. See, when we begin to understand the nature of the mind, the mathematical nature of the mind, you say if Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam, and then if mathematics, the ultimate definition for mathematics, well, I ain't gonna say ultimate because it's gonna always be one more ultimate, greater, but one of the greatest ones that I know of, the greatest one that I know of right now for mathematics is that mathematics is a way to measure. So when you say a way to measure, and then you say, well, what is God? And then you don't have anything to measure God by, then how can you have Islam? If you can't measure, How can you have math? Now, how can you have mathematics and you can't measure? How can you have a correct concept of God and you don't have an anchor point, you don't have a dimension point, you don't have any type of point of which you can measure where you are and where that particular point is? If that point is not established, where you may have the desire to submit, but it's not anchored, it's not stable. So when Allah manifests himself as a man, he gave us stability of perception. The main thing we have to get over is just the inferiority thing that we got with men, how we are taught that, God is all this and man ain't nothing. Oh, I trust in God, but I don't trust in man. Yet we say we believe in the Son of God and the Son of Man. But this is part of the fallacious logic that is created when you don't have an anchor point. Because if you want to look at something mathematically, you got to have an anchor point. If you're trying to take, if Islam is mathematics and mathematics is basically a way to measure, you got to have, if you're going to measure anything, you got to have 2 points. If you got a straight line, you measure it from one point to the next point. So know that this is the supreme blessing that you and I have as Muslim followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that we actually got an anchor point for our God. And that's one reason why all of the machinations and all of the attacks of the devil have not destroyed us. Here we are. As much as they hate the minister, they haven't destroyed the minister. I ain't gonna say he's chilling on the farm, and to a degree you could say he's chilling, but of course the way the minister chill and the way that we chill, that might be a little bit different, because this man has got a government on his shoulder. This man has the responsibility of the nation. What was the story that the minister was saying? He said, I saw a man climbing up a mountain, bearing a heavy load. And he said, when will my help come? Well, I think Allah is calling his help right now, this very moment. He's calling you, he's calling me. He's talking to us in this Quran. He said, do you want to inherit paradise? I think I'd like that. Well, therein you will abide. All right. So now we go to Ayat, Sister Haviva, Ayat 17, please.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just a read again. I'm sorry. I apologize. I unmute myself. And indeed, we have made above you 7 ways, and never are we heedless of creation.
Okay. So if you look at the footnote there it says, instead of the seven heavens, here we have the seven ways, which are no doubt the orbits of the seven members of the solar system, excluding the earth, as shown by the words above you. All right. So that goes back to, you may remember, I've made reference to it in the last couple of days about at that time there were only seven known planets, and so that's referring to that. And it said, and we are, and never are we heedless of creation. So he's just saying that that's one of the postulates of Allah is that he is going to be aware of his creation. That's his word to us. He's not going to be heedless. And then that's one verse in the Bible that says, heaven and earth shall pass away before one tick of my word shall fail. Now that's a pretty serious standard there. Okay, so we go to which further exemplifies this particular point. Ayat 24, please.
Yes, sir. But the chiefs of those who disbelieved from among his people said, he is nothing but a mortal like yourselves, who desired to have superiority over you. And if Allah had pleased, he could have sent down angels. We have not heard of this among our fathers of yore.
Okay. This points to the people. One of the things that trips the people up is that they were comparing Allah to regular men, even though these people were not aware that Allah is a man, but they don't, the same way that they don't trust men, they didn't trust Allah. And so one of the excuses that they made is that they thought that Allah was trying to have superiority, or that the prophet just wanted to have superiority over you. And it traces it back to what Mr. Hubbard said, that whenever people lie to you, their ultimate motivation is to control you. And so it says, and if Allah had pleased, he could have sent down angels. He could have. See, he can guide your thoughts. He has ways to guide your thoughts to unit facsimiles. And unit facsimiles, we talked about how the unit facsimile, the angel, one of the manifestations of angelic reality is the unit facsimiles that are created by the self-accusing spirit. So the self-accusing spirit always on a high level. It's actually always on the high level. It is that part of you that's on a high level. It is that part of you that monitors yourself. It is that part of you that the highest morals come from. And that's why when you pray, you say, oh, Allah, guide me to the best of morals. See? In other words, open me up, Allah, to the angels, to the angelic reality that exists within me. You see? So if Allah had pleased, he could have sent down angels, meaning, and I'm just giving you my take on it. You can submit yours if you like, is that he was just guiding you to that area of your mind. You got reactive mind, which is crazy as hell. Then you got, for each action, there's an opposite reaction, right? So if you got a reactive mind, which is subconscious, then you have the opposite mind. The reactive mind is Iblis, and then so the opposite of that is the angelic mind. So Allah could have, you could see it from the standpoint where if Allah had pleased, He could have directed your attention to that angelic aspect of yourself. We have not heard of this among your fathers of yore. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with here either. And what the minister dealing with the Church of Scientology relationship. You know, a lot of people really fell out with the minister when the minister started talking about Scientology, because the world's, you know, the the world is against the Church of Scientology, and that's part of in my opinion, what the legitimacy of the Church of Scientology is. When this world opposes you like they oppose the Church of Scientology, you must be doing something right. It makes me think about when I was in the prison ministry. You know, I had developed such a good relationship with them brothers, they kicked me out of prison. As long as you there and then you heeing and hawing and ain't talking like James Brown said, talking loud and saying nothing, they let you come on in. But when they see the prisoners begin to respond to the things that we were talking about, man, they said, matter of fact, I got the report back that one of the prison officials said, we're talking about me, say, who that nigga think he is? This is my jail. Say, all right. So we're going to move on to ayat 34.
Ayat 34. And if you obey a mortal like yourselves, then surely you are losers.
Okay, so that goes back to the point that we was just saying. And that's just like a lot of times that's the problem that people have with the minister. And they look at the minister and see, we are believers. See, so the light that we have shining on the things that we perceive is a finer light. It is a light that allows us to see with enhanced perception, where the believers are they are victims of an unseen blind. They're blind to what the believers are able to see. And that's just really the simplest way you can put it. It should, hopefully that's simple enough. Say, if you obey a mortal like Farragun, of course we know they talking about Muhammad then, but that stuff ain't doing nothing no good. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan talked in the early days. I remember back in the 80s. He said, man, y'all they talking about the Quran and Hadith and all. He said, yeah, all that stuff is good. But he said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that everything that is written of in the Bible and the Holy Quran is written to give us a picture. Think about that. That word, to give us a picture of what is happening today. He said, now, and if you read your Quran, you can read it many times if you want. If you cannot find an application to today in this Quran, you may as well throw it in the trash. So I say, in that spirit, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Muhammad 1,400 years ago. See, that's what it is. You go, on the a lot of the discussions that the people are having, during this month of Ramadan, it's more history. They're talking, the history is beautiful. It's a beautiful history. But we need we need history. Don't get me wrong. but we need the understanding of a history that allows us to understand more thoroughly the axiom that says that those who uh, don't learn the lesson of history is doomed to repeat it. See? So when you say people didn't want to obey a martyr, well, then what is it that you're going to obey? Are you obeying the air? Are you obeying everything? And see, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us a very beautiful explanation, a very beautiful uh, uh, understanding of how this thing, how this type of thinking destroys us. He used the example. He says that, in Christianity, they want to tell you, they say that, oh, we love everybody. We love everybody. But Elijah Muhammad said that if you say you love everybody, what that really means is that you don't love anybody, including yourself. So when you say that God is everything and God is everywhere and all that kind of stuff like that, the same thing, the same mental uh, aspect of that belief of everything, it renders your belief null and void. And that's why we have to understand, see, everything, God can't be just everything. God is the creator of everything. God is the cause of everything. So what we have to do now is we have to understand God. We have to understand the cause of everything. And so we say that Almighty God, Allah, came in the person of a man. So then once we are able to anchor ourselves, once we are able to get some kind of stability, see, because that's the only thing really that the mind can work with. The mind can't work with all that other stuff. The mind can't work with all of this infinity. You try to explain infinity, you just keep on getting further and further away from it. That's the reason it's difficult to really explain uh, the Savior after a certain point, because you can't put your hand on it. I talk about the epicenter, but it ain't, and I guess theoretically there is a center, but if the reality is infinite, it's a center that you will never reach. Because if you say that Allah, even if you say Allah in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, he's at Mariam, Mas Mariam. So you go to Mas Mariam and then you see Allah. And then you say, well, where is Allah? He's in Master Farah. He appeared in the person of this body. So where is he? Where exactly is the anchor point? Well, the thing that really benefits us is that the anchor point is that point where the reality of Allah is flowing into the universe. It's flowing into the physical universe. It's flowing into creation. And it's very similar to what the minister was saying around Savior's Day when he spoke of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as being the fountain of faith. So the body, the physicalness of the Savior, Master Farad Muhammad, is the fountain of creation, including including the body that houses this fountain. You see. All right. let's go to ayat 96 and 97, please.
Yes, sir. 96, 97. Ayat 96. Repel evil with that which is best. We know best what they describe. And say, my Lord, I seek refuge in thee from the evil suggestions of the devils. Allahu Akbar.
Thank you. Repel evil with that which is best. We know best what they describe. And say, my Lord, I seek refuge in thee from the evil suggestions of the devil. So let's see what the 96, what that footnote says. It says the doing of good in return for evil is the common teaching of all the prophets. And so this is one thing that counteracts the obsession factor. It's the common teaching of all the prophets. But nowhere is the principle put in such a beautiful and practical form as in the Quran. To return good for evil is only possible under certain circumstances. And the gospel doctrine that ye resist not evil has not been found practicable. The Quran, however, says repel evil with that which is best, and repelling evil, the rule to be observed is that must be repelled by what is best. If you can repel an evil by doing good for it, it is the course recommended. But if punishment is necessary, that would be the better course. It is the only workable principle of life. Now that's real interesting there, because you're talking about the workability of something. And you know, this is a big thing with Mr. Hubbard, is the workability. You know, that's how he adopts, you know, his practices and his theories is according to the workability. So he says that and that's what we talk, be kind and do good to all. And that reminds me of when the minister was in the early stages of the rebuilding of the nation. You know, there was a very volatile climate among the Muslims, because everybody, you know, the Muslims that followed before 1975, many of them were just really jubilant over not having to adhere to the restricted law anymore, and not have people micromanage them, because you know something, you know, and that is something that we have to deal with. Some of the things that the minister really have criticized us and the nation of, you know, we'd like to micromanage folks. You know, a lot of our officials, they will if you let them micromanage you, you will get micromanaged. Believe that, you know. And to their credit and to their defense, though, some of our people need micromanage, you know. It's just like Richard Pryor said, he took a visit to the prison. He went to the prison and he said, man, some of them people need to be in prison. He said, because I asked one of them, I said, hey man, he said, you know, you in prison for murder, and the thing say, the rap sheet say you killed everything. You killed the family and you killed the dog, everybody. So they said, why you do that? And so the guy say, they was home. So I'm just saying, you know, some of us need micromanaging. I mean, and that's unfortunate. So what we have to do, you know, and I'm talking about those of us on this call, and because we're going to be in a position at some point in time. See, Allah is not allowing us to deal with this knowledge. He is holding us accountable for what we are learning. If you get an enhanced understanding, Allah is he's going to hold everybody accountable for everything that he gave us, because it's him that's giving us an enhanced perception or enhanced knowledge. It's him. See? So we have to understand that. The messenger said, observe the white man. He makes no excuses. And because he's successful. Well, he don't put everybody in the same class. Even you go to school, you got a class for the people who are real, learn fast, and you got class for people that don't learn as fast. So when we begin to take these types of things into consideration, we will make a whole lot more progress with our people. And so when he starts talking about in the going back to what I was saying about the minister was saying that we in raising the nation back up, he was everybody was so jubilant about the freedom from the restricted laws, and so it was at the point to where they didn't even want you to say Elijah Muhammad's name. You said something about Elijah Muhammad, man, you could feel the counter emotion, that came up with such a conversation. And I never will forget, the minister told us, he said, brother, do everything you can to avoid a fight, because he knew that if fights would begin to break out, then it might have ended up in a civil war within the Muslims in America. So what he said was real simple. It was very much in tune with this footnote that we just read. He said that avoid a fight at all, at all costs. He said, but if you just got to fight, if you just got to take care of that business, you got to take care of that business. Now, you're not going to avoid no fight to the point where somebody just going to kill you, or somebody just going to abuse you or get rid of you. You got to be first. You got to always put you first. But it was it's an interesting thing where he says that, the first choice is always to do good. To do good. If you could turn the other cheek with your brother and sister, because it may work with your brother and sister, your black brother and sister, but turning the other cheek, it don't really work too good with white folks. See, that's the part of the problem that we have, that we run into when we deal with white folks, is that we want to deal with them with what is best. The best thing is, that we love one another even as Jesus have loved us, and we just want to love everybody, so and so and so. But see, that stuff don't work with our enemy. That's the problem that Dr. King had. That stuff what he was teaching did not work. And part of the reason why, when Dr. King met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I think it was in February of 68, I think it was February 68, he immediately came out with a whole different frame of mind. He started talking about the Vietnam War. He started talking about black economics. And them crackers ain't want to hit all that. But see, you can't, when you start talking like that, then they ready to kill you now, because you in their pocket. They all in your pocket, but then it's all right for them to be in your pocket and bleeding you dry. But when you start saying something that's going to affect their pocket, then that's that is taboo. Because when black folks start to uh, uh, do for themselves, then they cutting some white people out. And then when you start talking about his Vietnam War, well, then you got the people that make all of the money off of the military industrial complex. Now you in their pocket. And see, that's big time money there. You talking about something big. You talking about big time money. Even these little limited skirmishes that they have, when they drop a bomb here and there, and they shoot a few cruise missiles. Each one of those cruise missiles, $1 million a piece. And it ain't no such thing as no uh, United States of America uh, cruise missile plants. These things are paid for. These things are purchased from military vendors that sell this war machinery to America at a profit. And I'm sure some of you may remember back in the 80s where they did an audit of the military spending, and then they found that they was charging like $20,000 for a hammer. They might have sold a hammer to the government for $20,000. That might not be the exact figure, but it was something that just was some crazy amount that ain't right for no kind of hammer. That kind of hammer there, it have the hammer the nail itself. I don't even have to touch it. I wouldn't have to touch it at that price. So the whole idea is that the best thing, just like even with your brother and your sister, if you have a disagreement, well, then the best thing is try to settle your differences. The best thing is to try to talk it out, you know. But sometimes you just can't talk it out. And I'm not saying you're supposed to fight, but understand that sometimes you just really can't. And then that is certainly the case with white folks. We can't, we just can't talk it out. We're trying to do the thing in the best manner. But see, this man now, especially with the political climate that is with us now, he's really taken off the little thin veneer of civilization that he had. He's taking it off. And I don't know how many of you that have ever read the King Alfred plan that was revealed or exposed through the Freedom of Information Act. It was part of the COINTELPRO, where all the information came out where the FBI had infiltrated all the black organizations and so forth and stuff like that. They described it. They said what is getting ready to happen, or what could potentially happen in America. They said what make Hitler look like a Sunday school picnic. These are the words that they were describing it with. He said because the average white person only has but a thin veneer of civilization on. And he said once provoked, he will go wild like an animal. And we got a sign of that on January 6th when Trump, just think about what motivated him. You just think of how, what we refer to as brain dead. We know better. STW people know a little bit better about that terminology. But these people were like brain dead as we know it. That stormed the Capitol. And then you listen to what they were saying. They all sound like robots. And so what has happened is they are taking advantage of the reality of what the messenger has taught us in Lost Found Lesson number 2, when he talks about the 85%. 85% of the people they just there. They just existing. So you can tell them anything. And you should look into this group they call QAnon. And people actually believe that stuff. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad showed us how all of this stuff could be possible. See? It describes the 85%. They said the poison animal eaters, they don't have the knowledge of the true and living God. But on another level of reality, these are just people that are just there for whatever reason there. That's where they ended up. And their quality of life, their quality of thinking is such that, they just exist. They just are like matter. They have weight and take up space. And then they are easily led in the wrong direction. They're easily led. And so this goes for this goes for all organizations the way I was taught. Whenever you have an organization of people, you have a group of people, you always have a 85%, you have a 10%, and you have a 5%. So you just, so we are given that lesson so that we can get the concept that first of all tells you that whenever you got a big group, everybody ain't really on the same exact page. You got some people that can be manipulated in that group. And normally that's 85% of the people. 10% can be manipulated for their own advantage, the 10%, but you've only got 5% that's really down, that really understand the cause and that are down with the cause.
Okay, something was put in the chat put something in the chat. I'm not quite sure what they want in the chat.
Okay, one second.
Maybe
you're talking about COINTEL Pro?
King Alfred Act, maybe?
King Alfred, yeah, it could be. And I know I've got that thing. I've got it because that was like when I first came into Islam, I was given that. But we're finding, and I know it's got to be on the web somewhere, too. And as a matter of fact, I think I have seen it on the web.
Brother Batin, Sister Belinda, it wasn't the King Alfred plan. You mentioned something else that we should look up.
The COINTEL Pro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think the King Alfred was actually in that. In the information that I had, it was all together because I was assuming it was all there together.
Okay, yes, sir. I think it sounded like an Islamic word that you were saying, so I didn't know what you were talking about.
Okay, all right, no problemo. All right, man, we're moving right along, and then so we kind of have we hovering over this thing about good for evil and all that stuff, and so that's what we do, especially with each other. But then we have discovered that this is not a workable principle when you use it with white folks. See, and you can see that's even how they deal with themselves. In the government, the Democrats put an olive branch out, and then the Republicans say, you should want to work with us. They're gonna say that when the Democrats are in power, work with us, give me some power. But then when they get in power, then it's a whole different thing. And so, this is part of what we're talking about. We want to return good for evil, but when you see that it's not working, that it is not helping you to achieve a goal or a righteous end, then you shouldn't do that. And then I was given the example of the minister, how the minister tempered all of the soldiers in the beginning. And I'm sure if Brother Wahid is listening, I'm sure he can bear witness to how we were instructed back in that time. And because I had friends, that was with the imam. Even when I had discovered, when Allah blessed me to understand that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was indeed still the messenger of Allah. And I played in bands with him, and man, we would, I would just be observing them and observing the things that they would be saying that was against that was contrary to what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. So I see Sister Belinda put the COINTELPRO thing that you can that anybody can find. But see, this is the thing that that was back in the 70s when I first came in. That I saw this, and it's the same thing. Things really have not changed, you know. The minister used to say, I remember the minister said in 7 speeches, he said, the names and the faces have changed, but the game is still the same. So this is what we have to understand, brothers and sisters. And then it makes me think about what Mr. Hubbard said too. He was talking about how Jesus it really was talking about the validity of some of the Vedic, the Veda. Brother Lukeman was teaching us about the I got the book in the Bhagavad Gita, which is like the Hindu, the Buddhist scripture. And but Mr. Hubbard was saying, well, then that is part of what they call the Vedic teachings. And Mr. Hubbard talks about the Vedic teachings, being, see, that's just one book. But he said the Vedic teachings consist of anywhere between 125 and 150,000 books. And he was saying that is where the whole thing of not forcing people to do things, doing things without force and turning the other cheek and all that kind of stuff. It came from what Gautama Buddha. And we talked about in the lesson, we said Buddha is 35,000 years old. And so all of this stuff, this turn the other cheek stuff comes from him, which turning the other cheek, it works. It can work. It has a good chance of working within our own group of brothers and sisters. But you turn the cheek on the white man, it's just like what they say even about themselves, what the Democrats say about Mitch McConnell, the Senate guy, Republican. You try to cozy up to him. They say, "Don't pet the snake." They say this about each other. Don't pet the snake. So that's almost like, don't turn the other cheek. And that's when I first came into Islam, that was one of the main things that kind of caught me, man. Don't turn the other cheek. And the brother used the example of obsession to explain that. He said ain't nothing in nature. He said all this stuff is turning the other cheek. He said that's contrary to the nature. He said if somebody come up to you and hit you upside the head, he said your natural inclination is to hit them right back side the head too. And when I was reading that in Mr. Hubbard's reading, that came to my mind. I said, man, we've been taught all of this stuff. That Scientology really ain't got nothing on us. Only thing Scientology doing is it does present it in a way where our evaluation of the importances is enhanced. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us all of this stuff. Even I remember Sister Ania reading in the because I had the whole volume, I had the whole library of the Sufi message. I think I might have about 2 or 3 of the books left. I loaned them out and they never get returned and all that kind of stuff. But he was talking about, Mr. Khan was talking about how you can how you sit in certain postures. And it made me think about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, how he taught us as soldiers. He said, if you know, when you're on post and you sitting, then you have a certain posture that you have. There's a certain posture that you are to maintain while you on the seated post. And he was going into all that, and I'm saying, man, Elijah Muhammad, he had all of this stuff covered. See, and that's what we must realize. And I know we're coming up on 11:30 here, and I just really got a hard rule of not going too much over 11:30 if possible. It says 97, and say, my Lord, I seek refuge in thee from the evil suggestions of the devil. So now we go back to what we were talking about. We're talking about the angels. So you got the angels, and then you got the devils. And I think what I'm seeing here is you got the angelic activity. It can be mental, spiritual, and physical. That can be a person in your midst that can tell you certain things, that can embody the highest levels of thought and impart that on you. Or they can also be your focus on the areas of your mind that contain the highest level of thought and activity. So it says 97a, the evil suggestion of the devils were really suggestions of the wicked who were opposed to the progress of Islam. And the prophet is here told to look upon Allah as his only support. To seek refuge in the Lord is the height of goodness. Nowhere has a man a better refuge than in the source of all strength. And no mortal can aspire to a higher honor than having his refuge in the Lord. The command to the prophet to say this is really an image of the aspiration of his soul, the inmost desire which furnished the guiding rule of his life. His soul rested in that highest degree of security from all evil suggestions, which is termed refuge in the Lord. And so what Mr. Hubbard has done, in my opinion, he is all of this stuff, when you just look at it, it's really kind of fuzzy. But when you study some of these courses that Mr. Hubbard has given to you, and you see how he has organized the data to where it flows in such a way where your mind can expand, it is something, in my opinion, of great use. So I know we didn't get as far as we probably would like to have gotten today, but it is what it is. Is there anything that anyone would like to say or ask before we close out the session? All praises are due to Allah. Just remind you we will be on tomorrow at 5 p.m., 5 to 6. We, like I said, we may go a little bit longer. And appreciate everybody coming on. Always a pleasure, because I can feel what the scripture teaches us. It said, wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst of thee. And I can bear witness, I can bear witness to it, and it's because I don't. My wife can tell you there's most of this stuff she ain't never heard, and I talk to her almost 24/7 about this, and so I know this Allah is just drawing us. This is the attraction of Allah, and just want to remind all of you about how precious you are to me. I mean, that might not make no difference. It may not mean that much that you precious to me, but I know that you are precious to Allah, and I would beg you not to ever forget that. And so with that, we will bring this session to a close, end of session, and get Sister Jacqueline to take us through the end of session.
Assalamu alaikum.
Islam.
Brother Fatin, I just want to say that you and your wife is very dear and precious to my heart.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And you are precious to ours too, sister.
Yes, sir. Praise be
That's
to
right.
God.
That's right. That's our main physical contact for over a year now. It's almost like we've been in prison together.
Yes, sir.
Praise
be to
all
Allah.
praises be to Allah.
Yes.
But I appreciate everybody, everybody that's on the call. Like I say, I just feel like I feel family when I get on the call, and that's, Allah inspires, but I think that you inspire to I feel your presence and feel your godliness and feel your divinity, the source of inspiration.
Praise be to Allah.
All right. So you can go ahead on with that list, Sister Jacqueline.
Yes, sir. Family, please take a moment to prepare for the end of session. Thank you. Rapidly sketch over the session just ended. Began. Thank you. Sketch over what you have been doing again with particular attention to how you have been sitting. Began. Thank you. Go over the period of the session with regard only to what you have been doing with your hands and things in the exterior world you have heard during this session. Began. Thank you. Fix your attention upon a pleasant object near you now. Began. Thank you, and thank you all for your participation.
All right. Thank you, dear sister. All right. We will close out now in prayer. Attention, prayer. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, all praises are due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the merciful, master of this day of judgment in which we now live. To thee alone do we serve, and to thee alone do we beseech for help. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those you have bestowed your favors upon, and not of those whom your wrath has been brought down, nor of those who go astray after they have heard thy teachings. Say he, Allah is one, Allah is he of whom we all depend. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like him. Bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom all praises are due forever. That the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it is indeed thy true servant, the exalted Christ. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is the Messiah in our midst, the Comforter, the Holy Ghost, Mahdi in our midst. These things we ask in their great names. Amen. Go in peace, my brothers and sisters.
Ameen.
May Allah bless you. And we'll be on tomorrow and Sunday at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Sunday. And of course we will we will defer to Brother Luke Munn's class on
Yes, sir.
on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wow. Ramadan Mubarak and Juma Mubarak, family.
Ramadan Mubarak, sis.
Yeah, Juma, Ramadan Kareem and Juma Kareem, sis.